hi. I didn't see you come in. Because you're not in. Well, since there's no one here, I guess I can go ahead and confess to a string of murders that I committed throughout the Southwest in the mid-'80s, mostly in Arizona, but somewhat into New Mexico and in the Sonoran Desert. It wasn't that big a deal when you get right down to it, but I guess now's the time to kind of come clean about it. There's one person. Is that you, son? Are you going to drop into the chat or text me or something? I mean, I'm going to wait. Oh, and somebody bailed. All right, cool. Yeah, maybe I should. Maybe me and the boys should just be doing this on FaceTime. I don't know why I thought making it public. I don't know. I thought it would be something to do. It's like when this whole pandemic started. I gotta lock the door. This whole pandemic and the whole quarantine started. It was like I gave myself a bunch of assignments and a bunch of like, oh, I gotta do this thing now, or I gotta think of how to do this thing. Take up time, and it's like I don't need more things taking up time. I like doing this; it's fun, but I'm talking to myself. I don't need to do that in front of a computer. So I'll give it another few minutes. Grayson, if you're watching, though, let me know, and I'll just start. Because really, it's just me and you. And me and you can just start doing this over FaceTime or Facebook Messenger or something. If you'd rather, it's up to you. Anyway, I guess I'll talk somewhat about what we're reading. Tonight, we're going to be reading Fletch by Gregory McDonald. This was a detective novel, although Fletch is an investigative reporter, not like a private eye. It was originally written and published in 1974, and it became the basis of the 1985 film of the same name, starring Chevy Chase. It is 100% Chevy Chase's finest work. One of my favorite movies, period. Definitely my favorite Chevy Chase movie. And the book is actually pretty different. It's a lot darker. It's funny. Like Fletch, the movie, is a comedy, even with the crime angle to it. The book has its moments of humor, but it's not a comedy. The dialogue in the film, especially Fletch's dialogue, was all improvised by Chevy Chase for the most part. So the dialogue in this book does not have the same snap to it. It's still pretty good though. What I remember, I haven't read this book. The first and last time I read this book was in 1998, maybe 99. It was Christmas though. I remember that very clearly because I went to visit my parents in San Marcos, California, and then I drove home and I was bored and I started reading this book and I couldn't stop. So I ended up staying up all night reading it. And it's really, really good. So I hope you'll like it. I'm going to start in 1 minute. How have you been? Uh-huh. This is the second time I've done this bit on YouTube today. I don't think we'll finish this whole thing tonight. It's not very long, and it reads really quick because it's very dialogue heavy. Like I say, Fletch is an investigative reporter, and in this book, it starts with him investigating drug traffic at the beach, and as he's doing that, a guy he's never seen before approaches him with an offer to kill him. He wants to pay Fletch to murder him. And then that's where the story goes from there. All right, we'll get started. Let me just drink this for 3 hours. So I don't know how far we'll go until I'm bored, I guess, or we get to a good place to stop. So here we go. Fletch by Gregory McDonald. Chapter 1. What's your name? Fletch. What's your full name? Fletcher. What's your first name? Irwin. What? Irwin. Irwin Fletcher. People call me Fletch. Irwin Fletcher, I have a proposition to make to you. I will give you $1,000 for just listening to it. If you decide to reject the proposition, you take the $1,000, go away, and never tell anyone we talked. Fair enough? Is it criminal? I mean, what you want me to do? Of course. Fair enough. For $1,000, I can listen. What do you want me to do? I want you to murder me. The black shoes tainted with sand came across the oriental rug. The man took an envelope from an inside pocket of his suit jacket and dropped it into Fletch's lap. Inside were 10 $100 bills. The man had returned the second day to the seawall to watch Fletch. Only 30 yards away, he used binoculars. The third day, he met Fletch at the beer stand. I want you to come with me. Why? I want to make you an offer. I'm not that way. Neither am I. There's a job I might like to have you do for me. Well, why can't we talk here? This is a very special job. Well, where are we going? To my house. I'll want you to know where it is. Do you have any clothes on the beach? Just a shirt? Get it. My car is a gray Jaguar XKE parked at the curb. I'll be waiting in it for you. I want to drink my beer first. Bring it with you. You can drink it in the car. Walking away through the beach crowd, the man looked as out of place in his dark business suit as an insurance adjuster at a jalopy jamboree. No one appeared to notice him. Keeping his shirt over it, Fletch picked up the plastic bag off the sand. He sat a few feet away from his group, his shirt over the plastic bag beside him. Looking out at the ocean, he drank some of the beer he held in his left hand. With his right hand, he dug a hole in the sand under his shirt. What's happening? Bobby asked. She was belly down on a towel. Thinking. He put the plastic bag into the hole and covered it over with sand. I guess I'm splitting, he said, for a while. Will you be back tonight? I don't know. Slinging his shirt over his shoulder, he started away. Give me a swallow before you go. Bobby jacked herself on her elbow and took some of the beer. Oh, that's good, she said. Hey, man, Creasy said. Fletch said, splitting. Too much sun. The license plate of the car was 440001. In the car, Fletch sat with the can of cold beer between his knees. The man drove smoothly and silently. Below sunglasses, the man's face was expressionless. On his left hand was a college ring. He used a gold cigarette lighter from his jacket pocket rather than the dashboard lighter. In the shorefront traffic, the air conditioner was making the car cold. Fletch opened the window. The man turned the air conditioner off. He took the main road going north from town and accelerated. The car cornered beautifully on the curves going up into the hills. He slowed, turned left on Hawthorne, and then right on Berman Street. The house was what made Berman Street a dead end. If it weren't for signs on the iron-grilled gate saying private property, no trespassing, Stanwyck, the road would appear to continue straight onto the driveway. There were 2 acres of lawn on either side of the driveway in front of the house. Fletch threw his beer can through the window onto the lawn. The man did not appear to notice. The house was built like a southern mansion with white pillars before a deep veranda. The man closed the door to the library behind them. Why do you want to die? The envelope weighed little in the palm of Fletch's right hand. I am facing a long, ugly, painful, and certain death. How so? A while ago, I was told I have cancer. I've had it checked and I've had it rechecked. It's terminal, non-operable, non-treatable cancer. You don't look it. I don't feel it. A kind of general rottenness. It's in its early stages. The docs say it will be a while before it's noticeable to others, and then it will move very swiftly. Well, how long will it take? They say 3 months, maybe 4. Not 6 months anyway. From what they say, I would guess in a month from now, I won't be able to conceal that I have it. So, a month's a month. When you make a decision like this, that you're going to be dead, You decide to do it as quickly, as soon as possible. You try to cut the dying time. Hands behind his back, the man was facing the French windows. Fletch guessed he was in his early 30s. Well, why don't you kill yourself? Why do you need me? My company has insured me for over $3 million. I have a wife and child. There is no point in losing the money, which I would, or rather my heirs would, if I committed suicide. On the other hand, for $3 million, it's not worth going through that much pain and unpleasantness. I believe I have made an entirely rational decision. The paintings in the room were not particularly good, in Fletch's opinion, but they were real. Why me? You're a drifter. You suddenly showed up in town, you just suddenly leave. No one will think about it in particular or connect you with the murder. There will be no way of connecting you and me. You see, I've planned your escape. It is very important to me that you escape. If you were caught and talked, as you would, the insurance would be voided. Well, supposing I'm not a drifter. Supposing I'm just on vacation. Is that what you're telling me? That you're on vacation? No. I've been watching you off and on for the last few days. You're on the beach with the dregs of society. You associate exclusively with drug addicts. I must assume you are one yourself. Maybe I'm a cop. Are you? No. You have a deep body tan, Erwin Fletcher. You're as skinny as an alley cat. The soles of your feet are calloused. You've been on the road a long time. Well, why did you pick me over the other kids on the beach? You're no kid. You look younger, but you're almost 30. I'm 29. You're not as far gone as the others. You're addicted, I suppose. Otherwise, you couldn't stand to live with those freaks. But you still seem able to operate. I'm a fairly reliable-looking drifter. Don't feel complimented. Fletch said, what makes you think I want to commit murder? $20,000? And I guarantee you won't get caught. After staring out the window, it took the man's eyes a moment to adjust to the room. He was unable to look at Fletch without an expression of mild disgust. You can't tell me you don't need the money. Addicts always need money, even beginners. Maybe you're taking this opportunity will prevent you committing more genuine crimes. Why isn't this a genuine crime? It's a mercy killing. Are you married? I have been, Fletch said twice. And now you're on the road. From where are you originally? Seattle. So you commit an act of mercy, make some money, and split. What's wrong with that? I don't know. I'm not sure. Well, are you ready for more? More what? More of the plan? Or are you ready to quit? No, I'm ready. Go ahead. I want to die next Thursday, a week from tonight at about 8:30. It should look like the usual murder-robbery scene. The servants will be out, as they are now, and my wife will be at a committee meeting at the racket club. These French windows will be unlocked. The damn servants always forget to lock them anyway. He swung the door open and closed it with his hand. I used to complain about it until I realized their stupidity could be useful. At the moment, we do not have a dog. I'll be in this room alone, waiting for you. I will already have opened the safe, and in it will be $20,000 in 10s and 20s, which will be yours after you have murdered me. I don't imagine opening a safe is one of your skills. No, that's too bad. It would look better if it were authentically burglarized. At least be sure to wear gloves. I don't want you to get caught. In the drawer here, he said, reaching inside the top right-hand desk drawer, is a gun which is always loaded. It was a .38 caliber Smith & Wesson. The man showed him that it was loaded. I figure you should use my gun so no one can trace it to you. Before you come, I will mess the house up a bit to indicate robbery. The trick will be to make it look as if I have caught you at burglary. You've already been in my desk. You have my gun. You shoot me. Can you shoot? Yeah. Were you in the service? Yeah, Marines. So either the head or the heart. Just make it quick and painless, and for Christ's sake, make sure you're thorough. Do you have a passport? No, Fletch lied. Of course not. Get one. That should be the first order of business, as that will take time. It's not tourist season, so it shouldn't take more than 3 or 4 days, but get started tomorrow. After you murder me, you will drive the Jaguar, which will be parked out front, to the airport. Leave the car in the Transworld Airlines parking lot. You will be taking the 11 o'clock flight to Buenos Aires. I will make the reservation and pay for it in your name tomorrow. I figure $20,000 should buy you some fun in Buenos Aires for a year or two. $50,000 would buy me even more fun. You want $50,000? Murder doesn't cost that much. Well, you forget you're going to be the victim. You want it done humanely? The man's eyes narrowed contemptuously. You're right, of course. I guess $50,000 can be arranged without causing suspicion. The man returned to stare through the French windows. Clearly, he did not like looking at Fletch. I'm doing everything I can to guarantee that you don't get caught. All you have to remember are gloves and a passport. The gun will be provided and a seat on the plane will be reserved and prepaid. The man asked, "Will you murder me?" Fletch said, "Sure." Chapter 2. Clara? Where are you, Fletcher? I'm in a phone booth. Are you all right? Sure. I was afraid of that. I love you too, bitch. Endearments will get you nowhere. There's nowhere I want to get with you. Listen, I'm driving up tonight. To the office? Yeah. Why? I think I'm onto something interesting. Does it have to do with the drugs on the beach story? As a matter of fact, no. Then I don't want to hear about it. I'm not going to tell you about it anyway. Frank was asking for the drug beach story again this afternoon. Fuck Frank. He wants it, Fletcher. It's scheduled as a major magazine story, and you were supposed to be in with it 3 issues ago. I'm doing fine with it. He wants it now, Fletcher, with pictures. Frank was pretty boiled this afternoon, and you know how much I love you. Well, you'd stick up for me, wouldn't you, Clara? In a pig's ass. You can't take me off the story now, and Frank knows it. I've got too much time in on it. Besides, no one else in the office has my tan. What we can do is fire you for failure to complete an assignment. Why don't you stop talking, Clara? I said I'm driving up tonight. There are some people who are just too goddamn obnoxious to have around. Oh, meaning me? Which reminds me, Fletcher, another sleazy lawyer was around the office again this afternoon looking for you. Something about non-payment of alimony. Ugh, which wife this time? How the hell do I know? Don't you pay either of them? They both wanted to be free of me. They're both free. But the court says you're not free of them. Okay, when I want legal advice, Clara, I'll ask. Just keep those bums out of the office. Your alimony problems are not our problems. Right, Clara. Don't come back here until you have that goddamn story done. I can miss a day with the little darlings. I sort of told the kids I was splitting anyway, for a while. I can get back here by tomorrow night and have another wonderful weekend on the beach. I said no, Fletcher. If you've accomplished anything at all down there, you must have caused some curiosity. Going for your car now and driving up to the office will just expose everything. You shouldn't even be in a phone booth talking to me. I want to come up to make some phone calls and do some digging. On this story, the beach one? No, the other one. We don't give a damn about any other story until you finish this one. Clara, I'm cold. I'm still in swimming trunks. I care. Get off the phone and get doing what you're supposed to be doing. It's 7:30 and I've had a long day. Bye, Clara. Nice talking to you. Don't get any crumbs in Frank's bed. Prick. Running on the beach warmed him. The setting sun made his shadow gigantic. His stride seemed enormous. There were people still on the beach, as there always were these days. Taking off his shirt as he ran made his shadow on the sand look as if he were Big Bird trying to take off. Near Fat Sam's lean-to, he threw his shirt on the sand and sat beside it. His aim had been perfect. Under the shirt, he dug up the plastic bag. His fingers told him that the camera was still inside. With the bag wrapped in his shirt, Fletch ambled back along the beach to the residential section. The houses became more spacious and the distances between them greater. A checkbook was on the sand. Fletch picked it up. Merchant's Bank. No depositors needed on the checks, but there was an account number and a balance of $785.34. Fletch stuck the checkbook into a back pocket of his sawed-off blue jeans. A man stoking a barbecue pit yelled at him as he cut through a backyard. Fletch gestured at him in Italian. He picked up his keys in the office and padded over the grease-packed garage floor to where his MG was parked. In the trunk were long jeans and a sweater. Hey, jerk. The guy in the office was fat and bald. You can't change your pants in here. You can't strip in a public place. I did. Wise ass. What if some ladies were around? There are no ladies in California. He flicked on the tape recorder before he left the garage. The safety belt strapped the big tape recorder to the passenger seat. He put the camera in the glove compartment. The wire was draped around his neck. The microphone dangled beneath his chin. Alan Stanwyck, he said, waving as he passed the man still shouting at him from the office. After keeping me under surveillance for a few days while I've been investigating the source of drugs in the beach area for the News Tribune, has just commissioned me to murder him in exactly 1 week. next Thursday night at 8:30. His surveillance convinced him that I am, in fact, a drifter and a drug addict. At least I think it is Alan Stanwyck who has commissioned me to murder him. I had never seen Alan Stanwyck before, but the man who commissioned me to murder him brought me to the Stanwyck residence on Berman Street in the Hills. I know there is such a person as Alan Stanwyck, as Amelia Shercliffe of the News Tribune doubtlessly has referred to him 1,000 times, Alan Stanwyck, the wealthy young socialite. A quick check of the picture files at the office will establish whether or not the man who commissioned me to murder him is in fact Alan Stanwyck. I must follow the journalistic instinct of being skeptical of everything until I personally have proved it to be true. Stanwyck's justification for this unique request that I murder him is that he is dying of cancer. I am without any diagnostic training, but I must say that to a layman's eye, he looks a well and fit man. On the other hand, his manner is totally convincing. Further justification for the request is that his life is insured for $3 million. Direct and obvious suicide on his part would nullify the insurance. The man who says he is Stanwyck says he has a wife and child. The plan he has worked out for his murder is detailed. Having a passport, I am to enter the Stanwyck house through the French windows in the library next Thursday evening at 8:30. His wife will be at a committee meeting at the Rackets Club. The servants will be gone. Stanwyck will have arranged the house to make it appear a robbery has been committed. He will have opened the safe. I am to take a .38 caliber Smith & Wesson from the top right-hand drawer of the desk in the library and shoot Stanwyck to kill him as painlessly as possible. He has shown me that the gun is loaded. I am then to drive his car, the gray Jaguar XKE, license number 440001, to the airport and board the TWA 11 o'clock flight to Buenos Aires. A reservation in my name for that flight will be made tomorrow. For this service to Stanwyck, he has agreed to pay me $50,000. He will have the cash in the house in the open safe in 10s and 20s when I arrive next week. Originally, he offered me $20,000. I've pressed the price to $50,000 in an effort to gauge his seriousness. He appeared serious. His investigation of me, he believes to have been adequate. He watched me a few days and saw precisely that image that I had been assigned to project, that of a drifter and a drug addict. He did not know my name or anything else about me. What Stanwyck doesn't realize is that I am the great hotshot young reporter I am Fletcher of the News Tribune, who so dislikes his first names, Irwin Maurice, that he never signs them. I am Fletcher, down at the beach trying to break a drug story. The questions at this point appear obvious enough. Is the man who commissioned me to murder him Alan Stanwyck? Does he have terminal cancer? Is he insured for $3 million? Does he really mean for me to murder him? And the answer to any one of these questions, there is probably a hell of a story. And although I admit to having been in the killing business for a while and into China, I am now back in the hell of a story business. Any story concerning Alan Stanwyck is worth getting. Therefore, I have agreed to murder Alan Stanwyck. My agreeing to murder him gives me exactly a week in which I can be fairly sure he will not commission anyone else to murder him. It's dishonest of me, I know. But as Pappy used to say about violating virgins, son, if you're not the first, someone else will be. Chapter 3. Carradine, this is I am Fletcher. Yes, Mr. Fletcher. I write for the News Tribune. Oh, you are the financial editor, aren't you? Are you that shit who wrote that piece saying we are headed for a moneyless state? I did write something of the sort, yes. You're a shit. Okay, thank you for buying the Sunday paper. I didn't. I read it Monday in the office. You see? What can I do for you, Fletcher? A head peered through the door of Fletch's cubicle and smiled victoriously. The head was about 40 years old, male, with bleached blonde hair. Seeing Fletch on the telephone, it withdrew. I need some information about a man named Stanwyck, W-Y-K. Alan Stanwyck? Yes. The picture file on Fletch's desk was clearly of the man he had met yesterday. Alan Stanwyck in business suit, Alan Stanwyck in black tie, Alan Stanwyck in flight gear, Alan Stanwyck who wished to end his life, a murder mystery. He married Collins Aviation. All of it? He married the only daughter of the president and chairman of the board. Job security. You should be so lucky. Frank, our supreme boss, doesn't have any daughters, just sons of bitches. I believe Stanwyck is executive vice president of Collins Aviation, where wonders never cease. I believe he's due to be president once he gets a little more age on him. His future was made with the bed. No, I understand he's a competent fellow in his own right, graduated from Harvard or Wharton, one of those places. A bright fellow who, as far as I know, is a perfectly nice man. Well, how is Collins Aviation doing? Very well, as far as I know. He runs the place. His father-in-law is virtually retired, spends all his time running tournaments at the Rackets Club down at the beach and paying for them. The stock is solid. I don't know, I'd really have to look into it more. It's not a very active stock. It is publicly traded, but mostly it's held by Collins and a few of his cronies who are directors. So anything could be true, eh? Almost anything. Do you want me to look further into this? Yeah. Well, what do you need to know? Everything. I want to know everything about Stanwyck, his wife, Collins Aviation, personal and professional. Well, why the Christ should I do your work for you? Well, you're the financial editor of the News Tribune, aren't you? Yeah. Well, I'd hate to make a mistake and have it reflect on you. Me? How can it reflect on me? Well, I've talked with you already. Clara Snow said you're a shit. My extension is 705. Many thanks. Christ, no. I am Fletcher. The telephone book was stuffed into the bookcase behind his desk. While he was pulling it out, ignoring the papers that spilled on the floor from above and below the telephone book, the man who was not blonde came in and sat down in Fletch's side chair. Mr. Fletcher? The man wore an open shirt and love beads. Yeah. I'm Gillett of Gillett, Worsham, and O'Brien. Oh, no fooling. Your wife's attorneys. Oh, which wife? Mrs. Linda Fletcher, as she is now known. Oh, really, Linda? How is she doing? Not well, Mr. Fletcher, not well at all. Oh, I'm very sorry to hear that. She's a nice kid. She is very distressed that since the divorce you have not paid her 1 cent in alimony. I took her to lunch once. She has told me about the king-size relish burger several times now. Your generosity has been marked. The alimony you owe her is $3,429. Because of your generosity regarding the king-size relish burger, the few odd cents can be forgotten. Oh, thanks. Collins Aviation, 553-0477. Tell me something, Mr. Worsham, Gillett. As an attorney, I mean. I would not be allowed to have you as a client. I might add that I would not want you as a client. Nevertheless, there you are, sitting in a chair in my office, determined not to be thrown out, while I'm trying to get some work done. I know you come from a very distinguished law firm. Only partners of the most distinguished law firms come out personally to collect bills for $3,000. You've been hanging around all week. Or are you nicking Linda for more than 300 of the 3,000? What is your question, Mr. Fletcher? As an attorney, Mr. Gillett, do you think it makes any difference that I never agreed to any alimony settlement? I never even agreed to the divorce. I have nothing to do with that now. The court decided that you shall pay, and you shall. I mean, doesn't it strike you as peculiar that I came home one night and Linda wasn't there, and the next thing I know, I'm being divorced for abandoning her? This is not the first time this has happened to you, Mr. Fletcher. For a boy in your early or mid-20s, 2 divorces on your record seem more than adequate. I'm sentimental. I keep believing in the old institutions. Well, as long as you keep getting married, I promise I won't get married anymore. Being abandoned is too expensive. Mr. Fletcher, Mrs. Fletcher has told me a great deal about you. Did you ever buy her a king-size relish burger? We've talked in my office. Yeah, I thought so. She has told me that you are a vicious, violent man, a liar, and a cheat, and that she left your bed and board because she absolutely couldn't stand you anymore. She did not abandon you. She did not abandon you. She escaped with her life. Vicious and violent bullshit. One night I stepped on the cat's tail. You pitched the cat through the window of your 7th floor apartment. The whole place smelled of cat. Mrs. Fletcher, thinking reasonably that she might be the next one to go through the window, packed and left the very next time you left the apartment to go to work. It's nonsense. She didn't smell. She was always in the shower. She washed her hair every half an hour. Mr. Fletcher, as you have pointed out, I have been looking for you all week. For some reason, your office would not let me know where you were. I have the choice of bringing you back to court, and this time I assure you, you will appear. Now, do you wish to arrange to make this payment here and now, or do you force me to go back to court? Well, it's easier done than said. From his desk drawer, Fletch took the checkbook he had found on the beach, the merchant's bank. It just so happens, Mr. Gillett, that I've been playing poker all week. I won $7,000. That's why my office didn't know where I was, of course. I deposited the money last night. If you would just take this check and hold it for 10 days. Oh, certainly. That would leave me enough for taxes and to get the car washed, don't you think? I should think so. Now, what was the amount again? $3,429.47. I thought we were forgetting the 47 cents. The relish burger. Yes, all right. Every penny counts, you know. Fletch wrote the check for $3,429 payable to Linda Fletcher and signed it I.M. Fletcher in an illegible handwriting. There you are, Mr. Gillett. Thanks for stopping by. I'm sorry we're not on the 7th floor. It's been nice doing business with you, Mr. Fletcher. Standing at the door, Gillett still held the check between his thumb and index finger. Fletch noticed that his clothes were weirdly cut. The man had no pockets. No pockets at all. How did he get around without pockets? By the way, Mr. Fletcher, I read your piece in the magazine regarding what you termed the unfairness of divorce settlements, alimony in particular. Oh, thank you. I feel obliged to tell you what a stupid and wrong piece that was. Wrong? Dead wrong. Well, I understand you're thinking, so you're a divorce lawyer. Why don't you take an advance in career and become a pimp? I suspect that any divorce attorney, such as myself, could sue you for that piece and win. Well, I quoted divorce attorneys. None that I know. I'm only allowed to quote legitimate sources. Before leaving, Gillett tried to look haughty, but only succeeded in looking as if he were in the early stages of a sneeze. Collins Aviation, good morning. I'll get to it, David. Sorry. Collins Aviation, good morning. Good morning. I wish to talk with Mr. Stanwyck's secretary, please. One moment, please. Beneath his desk, Fletch pried off his sneakers. The linoleum was cool on his bare feet. Mr. Stanwyck's office. Good morning. This is Bob Olson of the Chronicle Gazette, Fletch said. We're doing a little women's page feature over here and wonder if you could help us out. Oh, yes, certainly. It's just a silly little story of no importance. Oh, I understand. What we're doing is a piece on who the private doctors are of prominent people around town. We thought it would amuse people. Oh, I see. So I wonder if you could tell us who Mr. Stanwyck's private physician is? Oh, I don't think Mr. Stanwyck would like to give out that information. Is he there? Yes, he came in just a little while ago. Well, you might tell him what we want. If we print the name of his doctor, Mr. Stanwyck probably will never get another doctor's bill. Remind Mr. Stanwyck that doctors themselves can't advertise. Yes, I see. The secretary's laugh indicated a finishing school with office skills. She had a finished laugh. Hang on a moment, I'll see. While he was waiting, Fletch took the envelope with 10 $100 bills off his desk and threw it in a drawer. Mr. Olson? Mr. Stanwyck laughed and said it was all right to tell you that his private physician is Dr. Joseph Devlin of the medical center. That's great. The man arranges for his own murder on Thursday night and on Friday morning laughs at someone's wanting to know who his private physician is. At least Stanwyck had good blood pressure. When will the piece appear in the newspaper, Mr. Olson? Well, we'll have to get a photograph of Dr. Devlin and... Well, can't you guess when? We'd love to see it. Friday of next week, Fletch said, I think. Oh, that's fine. I'll tell Mr. Stanwyck, so he'll be sure to buy the Chronicle Gazette that day. Right, be sure to buy the Chronicle Gazette Friday of next week. Fletch hung up the phone of the News Tribune. Medical Center. Alan Stanwyck expects to be murdered next Thursday night. Failing that, he expects to pick up the Chronicle Gazette Friday morning to read a reference to his private physician. Ah, life. Neither was true. 553-9696. Medical Center, good morning. Dr. Joseph Devlin's office, please. One moment. Dr. Devlin's office, good morning. Good morning, Dr. Devlin, please. Dr. Devlin is seeing a patient. May I be of some assistance? I need to speak with Dr. Devlin himself, I'm afraid. Oh, dear. We are the carriers of the life and health policies of Mr. Alan Stanwyck. Oh, yes. And a little problem has come up regarding these insurance policies. Oh, one moment, sir. I'll see if Dr. Devlin is free. Fletch could hear the nurse, receptionist, secretary, whatever, saying, it's Mr. Stanwyck's insurance company. They have some question. Another phone was picked up instantly. Yes? Good morning, Dr. Devlin. As you know, we are the holders of the policies on the life of Mr. Alan Stanwyck. Yes? Who is a patient of yours? In a manner of speaking. Well, what does that mean? Well, I'm the Collins family doctor. John Collins and I were roommates in college. Stanwyck married his daughter, Joan Collins. So I guess I'm his physician. I usually only see him socially. Well, how long has Mr. Stanwyck been your patient, doctor? Since he moved out here. Really, since before he married Joan. I'm not being very specific, am I? About 6 years. I could look it up if you like. No, that's all right, doctor. We're just reviewing some of these cases here. As you know, Mr. Stanwyck is insured for an enormous amount of money. Yes, I do know. Why is that, by the way? Why is he insured for so much? Oh, that's John's doing. That kid Alan loves to fly these experimental planes. You know, he was in the Air Force before he went to business school. He kept up his flying and jumps at any chance to fly any ridiculous-looking thing somebody thinks will go up in the air. I guess his continuing to do so means something to do with the company, Collins Aviation. Well, would there be a $3 million loss to the family if Mr. Stanwyck were killed? I don't know. I suppose so. The stock would drop, and the family owns most of it. He's the fair-haired boy of the company, and there isn't any other. They would have management difficulties, personnel difficulties. Yes, I suppose the family could lose that much if Alan were killed. No, I see. But frankly, I don't think that's the reason for the policy. Oh? John put that policy on him to try to get him to stop flying these gimcrack planes after Julia was born. He thought the premiums would convince Alan he should give up flying. I believe John mentioned that to me over a drink one day at the Rackets Club. I had said that much insurance on somebody would make anybody a target for murder. John didn't think my impunging his daughter was funny. Well, who is Julia? Oh, the granddaughter. I mean, Joan's daughter. Joan and Alan. A cute little type. So is Mr. Stanwyck still flying? Oh, yeah. Every once in a while we hear of a near... the page is ripped. A near crash? Keep the insurance on. When was the last time you examined Mr. Stanwyck, doctor? Not since before you guys took him over. You're giving him a complete physical every 6 months. How many times a year can a man be examined? So you haven't seen him at all. As I say, just socially. At John's for drinks or dinner at the club. Well, what sort of shape would you say he's in? Well, I couldn't say without examining. From seeing him at the pool and in the locker room, I can say he's a slim, well-built young man, muscular and apparently perfectly healthy. He drinks and smokes moderately. He's built like a 20-year-old boxer, except for his wind. He could go 15 rounds with anybody. Is it possible he could be seeing any doctor other than you? Anything's possible. Like a specialist? I don't know who would refer him to a specialist if your insurance doctor didn't. And if he became aware of a problem, he would most likely refer him back to me, and I would refer him to a specialist if he needed one. If the question is, have I referred him to a specialist lately or ever, the answer is no. Okay, thank you, doctor. Sorry to take your time. May I ask the reason for this inquiry? Well, we have to do a summary investigation of these large carriers periodically. $3 million is a hefty amount of insurance. That much insurance on a man would change his whole way of life, I would think. Or his way of death, doctor. Chapter 4. Library. I asked for the clips on Alan Stanwyck at 8:15 this morning. It's now 11:15. What the hell's the matter with you people? Is this Mr. Fletcher? It is. The chief librarian wants to speak with you. Fletch had been pleased to get the photo file on Stanwyck before the chief librarian had arrived for work at 9. Fletcher? Yes. We have the clips on Alan Stanwyck down here for you anytime you want to pick them up. Terrific. Such cooperation. I've been waiting 2 hours while you guys have been playing games. Running a morgue is no game, Fletcher. We are not running a delivery service. You have to come down and get the file yourself. I said thank you. And you have to sign out the file yourself. I've had enough of your denials that you never took something that simply disappeared after it was delivered to you. All right, I'll be right down. Try not to have the out to lunch sign up when I get there. Fletch was halfway down the corridor to the library before he realized he had forgotten to put his sneakers back on. I would have brought the file to you myself, Mr. Fletcher, but Mr. Osborne said not to. The great round frames to her eyeglasses made the girl look almost attractive. Fuck Mr. Osborne. He has the file. Osborne had a large red nose and always looked hungover. He had been a good reporter once. Here's where you sign, Fletch. Thank you very much. And here's your file. Shitty piece you did last week on the bookie joints. Sorry. My joint was closed all week. Couldn't make a bet anywhere in town. Good for what's left of your character. I kept track of the races. I figure you lost me about $500. Well, I'll send you a check. I get paid so much. I'm just saying thanks very much. Anytime I can do you a favor. Oh, you can. Fuck off. Return this file before you go home, sweetheart, or I'll report you. I am Fletcher, reporter. For now. The girl with the nice glasses looked at his bare feet and smiled. Fletcher. Clara Snow was in the corridor. For Christ's sakes, Fletcher. Beige suit, alligator accessories, all trim and proper for a trim and proper day. Or are you just getting in, Clara? For Christ's sake, Fletcher, jeans and a t-shirt is bad enough. You can't even wear shoes in the office. I've been here since 7:30. You're not supposed to be here at all. You're supposed to be at the beach. I told you last night I was coming up, and I told you not to come. I had to do some research. I don't give a damn. I told you not to leave the beach until you had that story. Do you have the story? No. Fletcher. In the dark of the corridor, her face was clearly purple. I'll talk to you later. I'm late for firing someone. Someone else. What? Did you and Frank oversleep? That's not funny. It's not even amusing. Well, that's your problem. Fletch spread the file over his desk. The clips on Alan Stanwyck were from various sections of the newspaper, mainly society and financial, but also sports and run-of paper. On each clip, Stanwyck's name was circled in red the first time it appeared. Fletch snapped on the tape recorder he had brought from the passenger seat of his MG. His bare feet on the desk, he leaned back in his swivel chair. 11 a.m. Friday. The murder mystery. So far, we have established only a few things. First, from the picture files at the News Tribune, I have established that the man I met last night who brought me to the Stanwyck house was Alan Stanwyck. Second, he is executive vice president of Collins Aviation, married to Joan Collins, and has one child, Julia, age hopefully somewhat less than 6. His private physician and family friend, Dr. Joseph Devlin of the Medical Center, confirms that Stanwyck is insured for $3 million. The reason Devlin offers for the heavy insurance is that Stanwyck's father-in-law and company president, chairman of the board, wishes to discourage Stanwyck from continuing to fly experimental planes. So far, the discouragement induced by heavy premiums hasn't worked. Stanwyck is still flying. So far, we have not had a reliable check on Stanwyck's health, nor do I think we're going to get one. Devlin pleaded ignorance regarding Stanwyck's physical condition, which is a queer thing for a family physician to do unless he were covering himself. And, most significantly, the doctor indicated that Collins Aviation stock would fall if word got around that Alan Stanwyck is terminally ill. It's a safe bet the dear old family doctor and friend has a large slice of his savings in Collins Aviation. It would be to his benefit to lie and to give Stanwyck all the time possible to put his house in order. Therefore, it is unconfirmed and probably unconfirmable whether or not Alan Stanwyck has terminal cancer. To me, he looked a healthy man, but I'm not better at medical diagnosis than I am at safecracking to everyone's disappointment. These jokes are better if I don't flood them. Leaning over the clips spread out on his desk, Fletch worked the on-off button on the tape recorder microphone. Let's see. From the News Tribune clips, the Alan Stanwyck file, we have the following. Engagement is announced. Joan Collins to Alan Stanwyck, November 6 years ago, at a big bash at the Rackets Club. She is the daughter of Joan and Marion Collins, the only child. Graduated from the Hills High School, Goddard Junior College, and took a year at the Sorbonne. Won tennis juniors when she was 15 and 16. Since her year in France, worked in the international department of Collins Aviation. The lady sounds dull. Alan Stanwyck, son of Marvin and Helen Stanwyck, Nonnehegan, Pennsylvania. Colgate College, Bachelor of Arts degree. Captain, United States Air Force, flew 24 missions in Indochina. Purple Heart, graduated from Wharton Business School. At the time of the engagement, he was Assistant Vice President of Sales for Collins Aviation. January 1st, it is announced on the financial page that Alan Stanwyck is named Executive Vice President of Collins Aviation. The old man wanted to see how the boy worked out as a big man in the office before finding out how he worked as a son-in-law. In April, Alan Stanwyck announced a multi-million-dollar government contract for Collins Aviation. Big wedding in June at the Collins family home in the Hills. Biographies are the same, but there is no reference to Stanwyck's family attending the wedding. Best man is Bert Eberhard, Colgate graduate, same year as Stanwyck. Stanwicks. It is announced Joan Stanwick, Junior League, Symphony Friend, a dinner dance benefit, the Symphony at the Rackets Club. In fact, once a year, each October. A dinner dance benefit, the Symphony at the Rackets Club. In fact, once a year, each October. Julia Collins Stanwick, born in March, the year after the wedding. All very proper. But interesting. She's here, she's there, she's everywhere at first after becoming Mrs. Allen Stanwick. Teas, lunches, dinners, openings, cocktails. Yet either her activity declined steadily or the society writers didn't find her very good cop, which would be unusual as she is née Collins and the average American blonde who takes a good picture. Apparently, she has done very little the last 6 months. Oh, Mrs. Stanwick, why have you withdrawn at 30? All right, Alan Stanwick sails as navigator on his father-in-law's yacht, the Colette, in the Triangle Race every year. Never won, never placed. Skippered by John Collins. A sailing as well as a tennis-playing family, a very rich family. Alan Stanwick becomes member of Rackets Club, Executive Committee, 3 years. Treasurer, Rackets Club, the last 3 years. Makes it to finals tournaments in both tennis and squash. Never wins, never places. Becomes a member of the Urban Club. Reads a paper urging city police to return to foot patrols. Key phrase is, get the cops out of their cars and back into the community. Yeah, Stanwick, the police chief answers. The mayor answers. People listen to Alan Stanwick. The next year, the paper he delivers to the Urban Club is in defense of jet noise around Collins Aviation. In answer to an earlier paper read to the Urban Club by my boss, News Tribune editor-in-chief Frank Jaffe. Wonder who wrote it for him. Probably Clara Snow over a cup of Ovaltine. No one, answered Stanwick that time. See, Stanwick speaks on F-111. He's in favor of it. Stanwick files F-111 simulator. Stanwick flies F-111 simulator. Stanwick flies this and Stanwick flies that. Stanwick tests Collins' cold weather private plane equipment in Alaska. Stanwick, honored by U.S. aviation writers. Stanwick, more of the same. I see why his father-in-law married him. There are no files on Stanwick. If there were, short of murder, somehow I doubt our sterling journal would print them. The telephone rang. Fletch said into it, so glad you called. Fletch, can't you do anything right, like grow up? Clara, darling, you sound relaxed and subdued, like just after sex. Did you just fire someone? As a matter of fact, I just did. Oh, who? A kid in the city room. He'd been calling people up and asking them stupid questions, saying he was from the Associated Press. Really? How awful. I always tell people I'm from the Chronicle Gazette myself. I wouldn't be surprised. Well, how did you catch this jerk? He called the French embassy in Washington and asked how to spell Elon. We got the bill. Oh, what awful snoops you are. He admitted it. And you fired him after he admitted it? We can't have people doing that. AP complained. Jesus, I'm never going to confess to anything again. Fletcher, we have to talk. Are you up to it? That's why I thought we should have lunch in the cafeteria. Put your shoes on. You're not taking me out? I wouldn't be seen in public with you. Even a drugstore lunch counter wouldn't let us in the way you dress. Well, if I had Frank's income. Upstairs in the cafeteria. At least people will understand I'm eating with you because I have to. You don't have to. I have work to do. I have several things to talk to you about, Fletcher. Might as well get it over with, including your Bronze Star. My Bronze Star? See you upstairs. Put your shoes on. Chapter 5. Clara Snow had ordered an uncut bacon, lettuce, tomato sandwich on toast. When she bit into it, the two edges of toast near Fletch gaped as if about to bite him. Tell me what I've always wanted to know, Clara, and somehow never expected to find out. How is our editor-in-chief, Frank Jaffe, in bed? Fletch, why don't you like me? Because you don't know what you're doing. You don't know anything about this business. I've been employed in this business a lot longer than you have. As a cooking writer, you know nothing about hard news. You know nothing about features. You know nothing about the mechanics of this business. Speaking like a school marm trying to coax a boy full of puberty toward the periodic table, she said, are you sure you don't resent me just because I'm a woman? I don't resent women. I rather like women. You haven't had much luck with them. Well, my only mistake is that I keep marrying them. and they keep divorcing you. I don't even mind you're going to bed with the editor-in-chief. What I do mind is you're being made an editor, my editor, solely because you are going to bed with the editor-in-chief, when you are totally unqualified and, I might add, totally incompetent. Go to bed with Frank if you like. Anything to keep the bastard reasonably sober and relaxed, but you're accepting an editorship in bed when you are unqualified is thoroughly dishonest of you. Even in the cafeteria light, the skin over Clara's cheekbones as she stared at him was purple. She bit into the sandwich and the toast yawned at Fletch. He chewed his calf's liver open-mouthed. Such principle, she said, sucking coke from a straw. You can't tell me you haven't made every strung-out little girl on the beach. Well, that's different. That's for a story. I will do anything for a story. That's why I put penicillin on my expense account. You do? Under telephones. What Frank and I do together, what our personal relationship is none of your damn business, Fletcher. Fine, I'll buy that. Just leave me alone and leave my goddamn copy alone. You chopped hell out of my divorce equity story and made me look like a raving idiot. I had to make changes in it and you were away on a story. I couldn't get in touch with you. It came out totally imbalanced thanks to you, bitch editor. If I were a divorce lawyer in our circulation area, I would have sued the hell out of me by now. You opened me in the newspaper wide open for suit, besides making me look like an incompetent. I tried to get in touch with you. Well, just leave my copy alone. You don't know what you're doing. Want coffee? I never take stimulants. For now, Fletch, we have to work together. Until you build enough of a case against me to get fired, right? Maybe. Now, please tell me how you are doing on the drugs on the beach story. There are drugs on the beach. Lots. On that particular stretch of beach, lots. Hard drugs? Very. Who are the people there? Well, the so-called kids on the beach are divided into two groups. The first group are drifters, kids on the road, alienated, homeless wanderers, usually incapable of permanent relationships. Some of them are just sun worshippers, but if they are, they case this particular stretch of beach and move on. The kids who stay are there for the drugs, because there is a source there somewhere of good, clean junk. Some of these so-called kids are 40 years old, though others aren't, like Bobby. Well, tell me about Bobby. Jesus, she's been listening. Bobby is as cute as a button, only sexier. She is 15, blonde, with a beautiful, compact little body. It's 1974. I want to make that clear. It's so gross, but have you been making it with her? She needed some place to crash. A 15-year-old. You talk about me. Hey, she came out with a guy older than I am. Originally from Illinois. Daddy's a dentist. She fell in love with this guy passing through the local coffee shop, packed a knapsack, and came with him. Once she was on the beach and thoroughly hooked, he wandered off. She was hooking when I met her. Well, how are you paying for her? Expense account, under breakfast and lunch. Aren't you afraid of the law, Fletcher? A 15-year-old? If there is no one to complain for a kid, the law don't give a shit. It's Fletcher's rule. The second group of kids on the beach, they felt like they were going to justify it, and they never did. The second group of kids on the beach are the local teenagers. They show up after school in their stripped Volkswagens with surfboards and make deals with daddy's hard-earned bread. The fuzz care a lot more about the local kids, as might be expected. In fact, one kid in particular, a kid named Montgomery, they pick up every week, yank him down for questioning. His dad is important in the town or something, regular as clockwork. But he shows up again almost immediately, beat up and smiling. Well, why do the kids go to that beach? Because there is a source there. Well, who is the source? It's an older drifter named Batsanya. I'd say he's in his mid-30s, balding and bearded. Oddly enough, he's got kindly eyes, desperately skinny. The local kids call him Fat Sam. So why haven't you a story if you know this much? Because I don't know what Fat Sam's source is. I can't figure it out. He never seems to leave the beach. I spent 10 days tailing him. All he seems to do is sell, sell, sell. I know where his stash is. It's in a chink on the seawall. When word passed that Fat Sam was getting low, I kept my eyes on the stash for 36 hours. 1, Fat Sam did not leave the beach. 2, no one else went near his stash. After 36 hours, the supply was up again. Rationing was over. I can't figure it out. You missed the contact. Yeah, thanks. You've been on the story for 3 weeks. That's not so much. Well, why don't we just run with what we've got? Put Fat Sam out of business. Well, who cares about Fat Sam? The thing would start up again within a month. If you were any kind of journalist, Clara, you would know that we do not have a story until we have Fat Sam's source. Well, you've got to stop somewhere. I mean, his source must have a source. You plan to follow the sources back to Thailand or some such place? Maybe. You've got pictures of Fat Sam dealing, right? Right. Well, let's run with it. Negative. You'll get the story when there is one. Putting one little pusher behind bars for 12 hours is not my idea of journalism. Well, Frank is anxious. Well, you're in charge of relieving Frank's anxieties. I wish I could have dessert, she said. Fletch was eating a strawberry shortcake with whipped cream. Clara said quickly, there's a matter of insubordination, disobedience. Fletch put a perfect balance of strawberry shortcake and whipped cream on his fork. I told you not to leave the beach today. 1, we want you to stay there until that story is done. 2, we don't want you to blow your cover. Whoever Fat Sam's source is could be wise to you by this time or suspicious. He could be watching you. All you needed to do was jump into your Alfa Romeo or whatever it is you drive and speed up to the News Tribune, which you have done, and you are dead. It's good shortcake. It's an MG. What? MG. I don't understand you. My car. It's an MG. Oh, you may be dead. I'll get the story in first. Well, do you think you should go back to the beach? Sure. Will you be safe? Well, come with me and find out. No, thanks. But I do wonder, Fletch, if we hadn't ought to tell the local police that you're down there, who you are and what you're doing. Fletch put down his fork and sat back in his chair. His look was meant to terrify. If you do that, Clara, you'll be dead before me. I will kill you. Make no mistake. We're responsible for you, Fletcher. Then be responsible, goddammit. Shut the fuck up. You never blow a story to anyone at any time ever. Christ, I wish I didn't have to talk to you, such an idiot. All right, Fletcher, calm down. People are watching. I don't give a shit. I won't talk to the police yet. Don't talk to the police or anyone else ever. If I need help, I'll ask for it. All right, Fletcher, all right. Stupid bitch. How does he not get fired for calling his boss a stupid bitch? Which brings up the last matter, your Bronze Star. What about it? While you've been gone, not only have thousands of sleazy lawyers hired by your dozens of ex-wives been prowling the corridors ready to leap at you, but the Marine Commandant's office has been calling as well. So what? You won a Bronze Star. That was years ago. You never picked it up. Right. Well, may I ask why not? Such a thing does not belong in a pawn shop. What do you mean? Well, that's where they all end up, isn't it? I don't see why. Well, you don't have so many ex-wives. You are going to pick up the Bronze Star. I am not. It's all arranged. There is to be a ceremony next Friday, a week from today, in the Commandant's office at the Marine base, and you are going to be there in a suit and tie and shoes. What the hell is this to you? This is private business. It is not private business. You are I Am Fletcher, star writer of the News Tribune, and we are going to run you smiling modestly in all the editions Saturday. You are like hell. We are. What's more, the Marine Commandant is going to have his full public relations staff, including photographers there. No. And we're going to try to make a wire story out of it, tell the whole world both about your exploits and the modesty that has kept you from picking up such a high honor for all these years. We won't tell them you really haven't picked it up just because basically you're a total slob. I won't be done with the beach story by then. You will turn in your beach story, whatever it looks like, with pictures by 4 o'clock Thursday afternoon. We will run it in the Sunday paper with a little sidebar saying News Tribune reporter I Am Fletcher received the Bronze Star Friday, etc. You will do nothing of the sort. Frank has decided. The publisher has agreed. I don't care. I haven't. There is the matter of insubordination. You left an assignment when you were told clearly not to. I won't do it. I'll put it more simply, Fletcher. You have the beach story in, complete, Thursday afternoon at 4, and be in the Marine Commandant's office next Friday morning at 10, or you're fired. And I, for one, will cheer. Oh, I bet you will. You're an obnoxious prick. I sell papers. You heard me, Fletcher. Thanks for wearing your shoes to lunch. I didn't. That's fun. All right. Chapter 6. Let me just check to make sure no one has texted me. Good. Fletcher, this is Jack Carradine. I tried to call you earlier, but apparently you were out to lunch. Yeah, I just ran upstairs to get bitten. What? I was in the cafeteria getting chewed out. I have some information for you regarding Alan Stanwyck, but before I give it to you, I'd like to know what you want it for. The financial department of this newspaper can't be totally irresponsible. Oh, of course. I understand. Fletch switched the telephone to his left ear and picked up a pen. The truth is, he lied, we're thinking we might do a feature story on who the most highly, or I should say heavily insured people are in this area, and why, and why they are so heavily insured. That's that lunch. Is Alan Stanwyck heavily insured? Oh, yes, very heavily. Well, that stands to reason. He has a lot riding on his nose. Who is the beneficiary? Wife and daughter, I believe. I shouldn't think they'd need the money, but since they hold a lot of stock in Collins Aviation, which he runs almost single-handedly, I suppose they would suffer at least a temporary loss upon his passing. Right, Fletcher drawled. What have you got? Well, as I just told you, he runs Collins Aviation. He's the executive vice president, has been since he married his wife. His father-in-law is president and chairman of the board, but he really leaves the running of the company to Stanwyck. It is expected that within 2 or 3 years, once he gets a little age on him, he will be made president of Collins. His father-in-law is only in his late 50s, but would rather sail his yacht and run tennis tournaments. He seems to trust Stanwyck completely. Well, how's the company doing? Beautifully. The stock, what there is of it available, is high and solid. Never been higher, in fact. They declared a stock dividend last year. They're considered a little weak in management, but that doesn't matter so much when you have a man as young and as competent as Stanwyck running the show. And he does, absolutely. He's a hard-working fellow. It is presumed that as his father-in-law's executive team begins to retire in the next few years, Stanwyck will bring in his own fresh young team. It won't be hard for him to do so because he has made a point of knowing almost everybody in the industry. Would you mind a stupid question? Yeah, I'm used to them. What does Collins Aviation do? Well, they design and manufacture subsidiary parts for airplanes. In other words, they don't make airplanes, but they might make the seats or engine parts or control panels, what have you. Without meaning to make a pun, they also have a satellite division that does the same thing for spacecraft. This latter division has grown terrifically under Stanwyck. Apparently, he is an attractive, amiable, personable man who always seems to be able to get the right contract for his company at the right time. Someone said he's firm, but he never presses. How much is a company like that worth? To whom? I mean, what's its net worth? Well, Fletch, you don't really know what you mean. Companies aren't houses that have an approximate aggregate value. Companies are worth precisely what their stock is worth on the market at that moment. It has a considerable gross income, a nifty net return to stockholders, a big payroll. Well, give me a figure. If it were a house, Collins Aviation might be worth $500 million. $500 million? Can you count that high? Not even with my shoes off. Who owns it? The Collins family. John, his wife, and daughter continue to own 51% of the company. Wow. Yeah, they are very rich. Of course, the stock is actually held in foundations and trusts and what have you, but it's all John Collins when it comes time to vote. I must add that the Collins family, so you won't think they're complete dopes, have an amount equal to or greater than their investment in Collins Aviation invested through investment houses in Boston. Phew, why Boston? You don't know much, do you, Fletcher? Not about money. I've seen so little of it. Boston is the Switzerland of this hemisphere. It is chock-a-block full of quiet, conservative investment bankers. I thought it was full of beans. It is. Other people's. Well, how do people get as rich as Collins? If I knew, do you think I'd be sitting here? Collins is a Harvard graduate who started designing and making airplane equipment with his own hands in a rented garage on Fairbanks Avenue in the early 1930s. Patents led to capital. It's easy. Go do it. Everybody says he's a nice man, quiet, humble. He's good to his friends. Most of the rest of Collins Aviation stock is held by friends of the family. They're all as rich as lords. He's made heavy contributions to Harvard College, the Cancer Fund, muscular dystrophy. The Cancer Fund? Yeah, he's given them something like a total of $10 million. Recently? Yeah, continuously. I see. Stanwyck is the perfect man to be Collins' son-in-law, considering Collins doesn't have a son of his own. Stanwyck is from a modest family in Pennsylvania. His father is in the hardware business. Is he still alive? I believe so. Why do you ask? His parents didn't come out to his wedding. Probably couldn't afford it. That would have been an expensive trip for them. Well, Stanwyck could have paid. There could have been lots of reasons why his parents didn't come to his wedding. Ill health, business, costs. How would I know? All right, go on. Brilliant student all the way through and apparently a nice kid. True Blue, a Boy Scout, Golden Gloves champion for the state of Pennsylvania who did not go on to the Nationals for some reason. Summa cum laude at Colgate where he did not box but began to play racket sports. An Air Force flyer who flew lots of missions, currently a major in the Air Force Reserves, graduated third in his class from Wharton Business School, which, because you probably don't know, is one of the best. Came out here, worked in the sales department of Collins Aviation, where sales immediately jumped. Became a vice president at 26 or 27 and married the boss's daughter. Apparently just a magnificent young man in all ways. Yeah, he sounds machine-made. Too good to be true, huh? There are people like that. Unquestionably, the guy is ambitious, but there's nothing immoral in that. He's done well, and he's well-liked. Oh, by the way, Jack, who is your source for all of this? Oh, I thought you would never ask. The Collins family has a local stockbroker, an investment man out here, who does just little things for them, regarding Collins Aviation stock. Little things that run into the millions. Name of Bill Carmichael. We play golf together. Needless to say, Carmichael is the son of an old buddy of John Collins. His father died, and Carmichael fell heir to the account. He and Stanwyck have become close friends. Stanwyck has taken him flying. They play squash and tennis together. He genuinely likes Stanwyck. And incidentally, he says Stanwyck genuinely likes his wife, Joan Collins, which ain't always the case. So there's no hanky-panky going on. Not as far as Carmichael knows. Between you and me, Stanwyck would have to be out of his mind to be playing around on the side under these circumstances. God knows what Papa would say if Stanwyck got thrown out of bed. Well, does Stanwyck have any money of his own? No, not to speak of. He has his savings from his salary invested with Carmichael, but it doesn't amount to much over $100,000. Oh, poor fellow. He did not buy the house on Vermin Street. She did, but it's in both their names. Carmichael says it's worth maybe $1 million. However, Stanwyck maintains the house and staff and supposedly all other family expenses out of salary. Male chauvinist pride, I guess, which is why he probably doesn't have more savings out of salary. That's an expensive family to keep up with. Incidentally, the house on Vermin Street backs onto the Collins estate on, would you believe it, Collins Avenue. Old John Collins has spyglasses. I gather there is a lot of back and forth. Does he own a second house anywhere? No, his father-in-law has a house in Palm Springs, one in Aspen, and one in Antibes. Antibes? The kids use these houses whenever they like. Does he own his own airplane? No, Collins Aviation has 3 Learjets with pilots, but Stanwyck flies them when he likes. He also has to do some flying to keep up his Air Force Reserve rank, and he flies experimental planes all over the country, supposedly to test Collins' equipment. Carmichael suspects he just gets a kick out of it. Stanwyck is also the holder of some stock options in Collins Aviation, so I guess if you put everything together, he's probably a millionaire in his own right at this point, but it's on paper. He couldn't raise $1 million in cash without upsetting an awful lot of people. Oh, I forgot to tell you, Fletcher, Stanwyck and his wife have just converted about $3 million of her personal stock. Converted? Into cash. Carmichael says they intend to buy a cattle ranch in Nevada. He thinks it's an effort to get out from under the heel of Daddy Collins, go do their own thing. Was this Stanwyck's idea? Carmichael has the impression it's her idea. At least she's the one who likes horses. One can have enough of tennis and yachting, No, I didn't know. Why cash? The ranch costs something like $15 million. I can't get used to these figures. It's inflation, my boy. How can a farm be worth $15 million? Farms can be worth a lot more than that. Has Carmichael said anything to you about Stanwyck's health? No, except that he's a hell of a squash player. You have to be in pretty good shape to play that game. I tried it once, 12 minutes, and I was wiped out. Golf for me. Is there anything wrong with Stanwyck's health? Would it matter if there were? It would matter a lot, yeah. I have already mentioned to you that there's a kind of middle management crisis at Collins Aviation. The whole thing now rests on the shoulders of one Alan Stanwyck. Old John Collins could go back to work, I suppose, but he never was as good a businessman as Stanwyck. He was an inventor who had some luck. Collins now is to be run by a real pro, which Daddy John ain't. Well, would the stock market fall if word got around that Stanwyck was terminally ill? Collins stock sure would. That sort of thing would be very upsetting to that company. Executive personnel would start jockeying for the position. Some would leave outright. Things would have to be in a state of confusion for about as long as Stanwyck has been running the place. I see. So if he were ill, terminally ill, it would have to be kept a deep, dark secret. Absolutely. Is he ill? How would I know? Oh, I forgot. You're working on the insurance angle. Well, young Fletcher, I told you everything I know about Alan Stanwyck. You see, we are not very close yet to the moneyless state you write about. There is still plenty of it to go around. I guess so. Stanwyck seems to be a competent, decent man who happened to marry the boss's daughter, okay? Do you mind if I go back and do my own work now? I appreciate your help very much. I'm just trying to prevent your writing one of your usual shitty pieces. Anything I can do would be worth that. Chapter 7. And then I think it's dinner time. Fletch sat on the desk of the beauty in the broad-brimmed... Fletch sat on the desk of the beauty in the broad-brimmed hat, Mrs. Amelia Shercliffe, society editor. He had never heard that there was a Mr. Shercliffe. Working at her typewriter, her forearms quivered with who was at the most recent party and are they getting married. She finally deigned to notice the 160-pound object on her desk. Why, Fletch, aren't you beautiful? You always look just right. Faded jeans and t-shirt, even no shoes. The Shoe Institute wouldn't like my saying this, and of course I would never write it, but that's exactly what style should be. Well, darling, is. You're kidding, of course. Darling, I'm not. Well, you should tell Clara Snow. Clara Snow, what does she know? She used to write cooking, And between us, darling, she was terrible at that. Did you ever try to put together one of her recommended meals? Somehow, no. Desperate. Just desperate. The colors all clashed. We tried it once just for fun, some friends and I at the cottage. We ended up with a hollandaise sauce, and you know what kind of a yellow that is, and carrots and beets, purple beets, all on the same plate. It was so garish, darling. We had to look away. We ate with our eyes averted. The tastes of things didn't go together either. I believe her cooking column was successful only with blind polar bears. She's my editor now. Yes, I do know, you poor darling. If she weren't going to bed with Frank, we would have upchucked her years ago. Of course, Frank has very poor taste too. Pink shirts and strawberry suspenders. Have you ever seen his wife? Yeah, a dowdy old thing. She always reminds me of an Eskimo full of baked beans. She looks as if she ever got unfrozen, she would evaporate in one enormous fart. Have you ever told her so? Oh, no, darling, I wouldn't. I can't go to bed with her husband, being both overage and overweight, but that doesn't mean I can insult his wife. Somehow it all doesn't matter to me. Frankly, darling, I find Frank as attractive as a hangover. You're much more my type, lean, healthy, stylish. I am horrified at the thought that you think I'm stylish. But I do, darling, sincerely. Your style is exactly what Beau Brummel did in his time. All Brummel did, was to bring the lean, simple country style into the city. No, I didn't know. You should talk with Amelia Shercliffe more. You see how simple your clothes are, how clean the lines, jeans and t-shirt, blue and white. The lines couldn't be cleaner. You're not wearing shoes in the newspaper office, which is about as downtown as one can get. Here you can feel the whole city throbbing around you, and you're dressed as if in the middle of a hayloft. Delightful style, just right. I'm amazed. Who does your hair? No one. Well, what do you mean, no one? When it sticks out someplace, I chop it off. Delightful, you're darling. Amelia Shercliffe is my favorite character, was dressed in a tailored blue suit and white blouse. It was obvious she was liberated enough not to wear a corset. Her belly bulged from too many lunches and cocktail parties a week. The henna of her hair matched her face. Well, Fletch, I'm sure you didn't come along simply to have me admire you. You could go anywhere for that. What can I do for you? Alan Stanwyck. Joan and Alan Stanwyck, this area's most exciting couple. No, I shouldn't say that. They're beautiful, bright, healthy, and rich. But come to think of it, they don't really do anything. In fact, thinking of how exciting they could be, the Stanwicks may be this area's dullest couple. Well, which are they, exciting or dull? Rather dull, I think. He married her for Collins Aviation, of course. You say that straight out? Well, I suppose someone had to marry her, of course. And she is attractive enough if you like the usual American leggy blonde. Well, I do, actually. Oh, I'm sure you do. I was one once. Not all that leggy, of course. I was more petite. But Joan Collins Stanwyck is just sort of boring. I mean, she's symphony, of course. Gives that bash once a year at the Rackets Club to raise money for the violinist's rosin supply or something. And he always shows up and they stand in the receiving line and all that. Californian Gothic, if you know what I mean. They never seem to be enjoying themselves. They show up at dinners and cocktails, that sort of thing. They never seem to speak unless spoken to. They always seem to be just going through the motions. Well, they must do something for fun. I mean, for themselves. No, I honestly think they are too busy being ideal. Perhaps they're too aware of their position. I understand he sincerely likes flying, but all the rest of it, the racket sports, the sailing, the what have you, seems forced somehow for them. Of course, all that money must be oppressive. Oh, it must be. Jack Collins, her father, is a nifty man. Attractive, bright. I've always been slightly in love with him. Of course, he's my generation. But one has always had the idea from him, even when he's being formal, that somehow, maybe somewhere else in his mind, he's having fun. Of course, his wife, Marion, is a bit tipsy. Never could hold her liquor. Each year, they keep her more restrained. That's why I've always thought Joan must mean so much to her father. You see them together at parties, Joan and her father, benefits for cancer or muscular dystrophy or some of his other charities. And you always understand that Alan Stanwyck is off being busy with Collins Aviation. Sometimes he makes an appearance just at the end of an evening. Joan is in a difficult position between her father and her husband. Amelia Shercliffe took a hairpin from her desk drawer and applied it arbitrarily. Perhaps that's why I think she's never having much fun. She has to be hostess for both of them. Yes, instead of being herself, she has to have one hand working for Jack, the other for Alan. Well, reading through your clips, Amelia, on the Stanwicks, it appears Joan Stanwyck has been doing less and less in recent months, making fewer and fewer appearances. I suppose you're right. At least her name appears in your column less and less frequently. Now that you mention it, I'm sure you're right. She has been fading from the scene. Well, why? It could mean many things. She has a child, a little daughter. She could be spending time with her. Joan could be pregnant. She could be worried about her husband. Seeing I have this idea that she doesn't enjoy herself, she could just be bored with the whole round. It has no novelty for her. She's been doing it since she came out, with her father, unofficially acting as his hostess. You said she could be worried about her husband. What did you mean? Oh, gracious, what did I mean? Well, her husband, Alan Stanwyck, is running an enormous company and at an early age. That's an enormous responsibility, He must work very hard and very long. And, some of these fellows who always show a cool, pleasant face to the world are only able to do so because they fuss and fume at their wives in the privacy of their own homes. If anything is wrong with him, she would know it. You mean if he were sick? Physically sick? Yeah. Oh, I hardly think so. He looks the picture of health, always. A possible explanation of her withdrawing from society in recent months is that she knows he is very sick. I suppose so. Is he? How would I know? Of course, you could speculate endlessly. Maybe she loves him and hates his risking his life in those airplanes all the time. His flying must be a worry to her. Amelia, do you think the Stanwicks love each other? Oh, I always think so, unless I know differently. Why shouldn't they? Well, she seems to be half married to her father, the wonderfully attractive Jack Collins. It looks to me as if Jack Collins picked Alan Stanwyck to be his daughter's husband. Alan Stanwyck married Collins Aviation instead of a girl named Joan Collins. Amelia's eyes were the sort one told the truth to. Simultaneously, they appeared concerned and skeptical. Fletch, let me tell you something remarkable. In fact, the most remarkable thing I know. Are you ready for it? All ears. I've been a society writer and professional busybody almost all my adult years, and the most remarkable thing I have learned is that people love each other when they have the least reason to, and when you least expect them to. Love matches, marriages made in heaven, work no better than marriages made in boardrooms. Obviously, the Stanwicks marriage was made by Alan Stanwyck and Jack Collins. Joan has just sort of got dragged along. Yet, it is entirely possible that she is very much in love with Alan Stanwyck. Do you believe that? You say so. I'm not saying it's true, Fletch. I'm just saying it's possible. Joan and Alan might be terrifically in love with each other. Could Alan have a mistress? Oh, of course. Would Joan Collins understand? Oh, of course. I expect neither one of them feels confined to the marital bed, not in this day and age. And you say John Collins would understand. Yeah. Darling, the things I could tell you about John Collins. He didn't spend all his time in that garage twisting propellers. Well, sometimes men feel differently where their daughters are concerned. I had a father-in-law once. Well, he wasn't Jack Collins. All right, one more question, Amelia. Why didn't Stanwyck's parents come for Alan's wedding? My gracious darling, you young folks do your research, don't you? I have no idea. I suppose they felt they would have gotten eaten alive. Eaten alive? Socially, darling. I suppose they're nobodies from middle America and would have felt dreadfully out of place. Do people still feel that way? Older people do, darling. You'll see. Oh, I wouldn't miss the wedding of my only child. Perhaps our young protagonist, Alan Stanwyck, kept them away for fear they would embarrass him. Maybe their grammar ain't no good. I don't have answers, Fletcher, to all of your questions. I remember at the wedding, whenever it was, 6 or 7 years ago, there was a vague interest in meeting the Stanwicks, but it was explained, if you can call it an explanation, that the Stanwicks couldn't make it. End of vague interest. Maybe they had dentist appointments that day. Amelia, you're a peach. Thank you very much. I do have a bone to pick with you, young Fletcher, despite my otherwise unrestrained approval of you. Uh-oh. Has to do with that piece you wrote a couple of months ago, a little ditty called something fresh and original like Society is Dead. I'm not any more responsible for headlines than you are, Amelia. You are partly responsible, however, for the unadulterated rubbish that dribbles down from your bylines. Yes, partly. That piece was rubbish, Fletcher. Oh? Society, as you see, is not dead. There is plenty of it about. Just because you found a few grandnieces and nephews of prominent people hanging about the street corners, sniffing pot or whatever you do with it, saying too loudly and too frequently that they don't care anymore, proves nothing. You haven't been reading me. Amelia, I've read every word of yours. Society changes, Fletcher, but not much. It does not die. It moves. It oozes. It changes its shape, its structure, its leaders, and its entertainments. There is always a society. As long as the instinct for power beats in the breasts of men and women, there will be a restricted clawing called society. And there will always be a society columnist named Amelia Shercliffe. Go off to bed with someone nice, darling, and be sure to tell her how I envy her. Oh no, I lost my place. Nope, chapter 7. All right, that's a good place to stop for now. I had like a million bookmarks a minute ago. Fun stuff, good stuff. Like I said, it's very dialogue heavy, so I hope it's not too confusing because there's not even like dialogue tags. He said, she said, blah, blah, blah. But good. I hope you enjoyed it, Bubblicious, and I will talk to you later, and we'll pick up at chapter 8 next week. Okay, buddy? I love you very much. Have a good night.